Hey everyone, welcome back. Sisters of Parvos is dropping on June 6th. It's probably going to be around 2 PM EST, so make sure you don't miss it. Today we're going to take a closer look at the upcoming Sisters of Parvos weapons. Specifically, we're going to go over the Lich sister weapons in this video. This includes the 8 possible drops, as well as 2 extra weapons, I'm theorizing, are the ones being added to the Void Storm. I'm planning a separate video to drop tomorrow going over the 4 Tenet Melee weapons we will be able to pick up from Ergo Glast as chosen Liches on a weekly rotation, as well as the 3 Kuva weapons being added. There are 10 weapons to go over today, and I'll be telling you which ones I have high expectations for, so let's not waste any more time. First on the list is the Tenet Flux rifle. I can tell you right now this thing is going to be pretty decent. While it is losing the majority of its slash bias, dropping from 78.18% to 27.3%, there are other important factors to consider. Its crit chance is increasing from 10 to 20, meaning it is actually now crit viable and can easily reach 100% with crit chance ribbons or the use of combat discipline in Arcane Avenger. This means you can actually build it as hybrid and not just raw status. It did lose 0.2 crit damage down to 1.8 though. Magazine has more than doubled from 50 to 120 and also gained 2% more status up to 26. You have 2 options for this weapon. Either run a low percent toxin so you can slot Colt 6060 and make viral, and saving a slot for Huntu munitions actually, which the vanilla variant can't run. This way it self-fuels the slash DOTs. Or you can go full 60% impact and slot hemorrhage to convert slash, while benefiting with a massively higher base damage for slash DOTs. If you go this route, the slash bias only increases to 30.2, but you also gain an additional status effect that the vanilla variant lacks, on top of the already extra heat, which means 2 extra damage stacks for galvanized aptitude. This weapon will probably be able to slot flux overdrive as well, meaning it will definitely reach and pass 100% status easily. While not a meta pick, I think this one will be a noticeable improvement over the vanilla. Tenet Tetra. This one is a completely different beast. It literally isn't even the same weapon, and the shining star amongst these new weapons. From trash to let's smash. Tenet Tetra will give even Trumna a run for its money. Compared to the Prisma Tetra, it gained higher crit multiplier, 2.2 instead of 2, nearly triple the crit chance, 28 instead of 10, higher status, 30 instead of 24, higher base damage, 60 instead of 38, which now also includes slash by the way, that the vanilla lacks, and a minus puncture ribbon can take full advantage of. Also keep in mind that with the Kuva bonus, the final base damage is nearly triple the original. It also has a bigger mag size, 80 instead of 60, but reduced fire rate, which is fine because ammo economy is a thing, and this is already a powerhouse. Slower reload that's nearly negligible, from 2.2 to 2. But here's the thing, its alt fire will dump the clip for a massive large AoE grenade launcher, no kill restrictions like the Trumna, massive firepower on demand whenever. Certainly ammo will probably be an option for spamming this, but I'd expect everything you touch with the alt fire to die, especially with those hybrid crit stats. Vigilante supplies can easily patch up the ammo problem with drops from the dead. You will probably even be able to slap kinetic ricochet on this, and I'm very curious how this will interact with its alt fire with the 6 times more bounces. This is probably going to find its way into the meta, while not at the top, but definitely relevant and competitive. Remember, it can even self-fuel viral and save a mod slot, something the Trumna can't do. Its raw DPS on the primary fire with 60% Kuva bonus is 480, which is 78% of the way there to a Trumna, which has one of the highest DPS of any rifle outright. But this weapon is slash viable, has better crits, better element access, and a much better reload. The Tenet Arca plasmor is next. Oh man, the power on this thing. They are increasing its fall off from 10 to 20 meters to 18 and 36 meters. That's nearly double. The original projectile would travel only up to 30 meters, so we can only presume the Tenet variant will travel at least 40. With fatal acceleration, falloff doesn't even start until 25 meters. You can literally snipe across the room as the projectile will travel at least 56, literally cross tile. The reload is getting increased from 2.8 to 3, but that's exactly why I told you to grab primed tactical pump, which will cut it down to a juicy 1.5. We are going to go full Hunter's Munition crit on this and skip any elements. The Tenet variant benefits from rebounding rounds, so that's even more damage there. Once again, you can just use your melee to prime it for viral as needed. More critical chance would have been nice, but combat discipline in Avenger exists, and lets you hit near guaranteed crits, and you also have Vigilante stat sticks as a bonus. Just remember to keep Assault mode off your Sentinels to minimize their aggro. The vanilla has Trash Dispo as well, so if this releases a 0.5, it will still eclipse the original. This is definitely another top tier pick. I'm not sure if it will become meta damage wise, but I can assure you this will be the next casual meta choice to room clear with guns for a while. With the capability of lightning reloads, massive room clearing potential, higher base damage alongside a chosen innate element, you just can't go wrong with this one. Next we have Tenet's spirex or spirex. This is a rare weapon type. This is one of the very few weapons that can make use of hemorrhage without having forced impact procs. How am I so sure? Just take a look at the stats. This is a true hand cannon, slow firing with busted stats to back it up. It has above average crit chance and crit damage, higher than you'd expect for that monstrous base 40% status chance. Sack some spittle to raise the impact weight and that status chance, and galvanized shot will push this weapon all the way to 100% status instantly. If you go full impact on the Lich, the impact weight will now be 58.3%. This means every time you shot, you have 58.3% chance of proccing impact. The weapon has 2.33 fire rate, meaning it will get 70% slash conversion from hemorrhage. So every shot out of this thing has a 39.2% chance of proccing slash. But that isn't all. With a full Kuva bonus, the shot does 192 base damage. There is also a radial component that we can't see in the reveal. As long as it does at least 68 damage without the bonus, this weapon will even outdamage Epitaph on a per shot basis. In fact, actually, this weapon outdamages the Tenet Tetra I showed you. It also can shoot faster than Epitaph, which has a cooldown after firing a charged shot, at 2.33 times per second on this weapon. It has slightly worse crits, but probably the same base damage totals, but applies status on target while using the damaging fire mode, which the Epitaph can't do by the way, and a higher effective fire rate. You can technically build it for viral as well, since 2 damage components means it actually has twice the opportunities to proc status. I doubt it will come remotely close to Epitaph in priming, but the lack of needing to charge it means it will be a top tier tap shoot single target weapon at the very least. Another upgrade equivalent to the original Euphona Prime. This at least makes it an above average pick, but not top tier in the current meta. And Tenet Detron. Need I say more? I previously gone over Mera Detron just a few weeks ago, and its thermagnetic shells augment. I don't really need to say much else. If you want to see how it wrecks shop, click the card at the top right. The Tenet variant has the exact same fire rate, but only holds 6 rounds instead of 8. It still has that 1.0 reload though, so this is fine. The Tenet actually has slightly less base damage at 260 instead of 280, but keep in mind the Tenet version once again has an alt fire that lets you dump the entire mag in one burst. You also have the Kuva bonus, remember. But either way, that's still 1560 damage in one go, essentially a Tigris Prime shot, and 1 second reload. I'm all for that. The Tenet only has 10% base status compared to the Mera Detron's 13, but the actual math plays out in the Tenet having slightly higher total status due to the projectile count. That's right, it shoots 10 pellets instead of 7. The big thing here is the Tenet has legitimate crit stats, up to 18 from 8, and 2x crit damage instead of 1.5. I don't like relying on combat discipline in Avenger, but this pushes it all the way up to 96.7, or 51.7 without it. Very respectable numbers, and with the alt-fire burst in mind, should be very easy to set off the HP scaling thermagnetic shell nuke in a single shot. This is a top tier pick. You definitely want this weapon. It is literally a much higher damage Mera Detron with insane burst, and is actually crit viable. Oh, and also another free element to open a slot for Galvanized Aptitude, which will definitely benefit from the burst's default 60 pellets that each can proc status. Our next Tenet weapon is Cycron. Oh how the turntables. This one is kinda meh. The vanilla variant had radiation and some IPS to boot with slash innate. This Tenet version doesn't have any slash. It's pure heat, so it's literally impossible to get slash on it except if you go the impact route for hemorrhage. Being a beam weapon, this means you won't be able to get double effect from hemorrhage due to the high fire rate, and you will only get 35% conversion. Now, only 13.25% of your slash procs will become slash, and you are burning a mod slot to do it. The vanilla variant has 21.8% slash bias straight out of the box. The Tenet goes from 30% status up to 40 and a noticeable crit bump from 12 to 20. This actually makes it hybrid viable. But again, while we do have 60% higher base damage and being mostly hybrid viable, our slash is much less likely to occur, and it costs us a mod slot as well. Honestly, on this Tenet setup, you're probably better off building this as heat innate to make viral heat, with the 60-60 cold and toxin mods, and stacking prime heat to charge, to ramp up the heat procs and fix the heat weighting, though a hybrid build with triple elements is also super bloated and hard to mod for. You'll probably drop Lethal Torrent for the galvanized shot. This one is kind of a disappointment. It does spread to 2 other enemies via chaining, but I don't see how this weapon can compete in the current meta. It's a weird mix of Gaze and Kuva Lich being a worse status applicator and a slightly better DPSer than both. This is a good way to kill small amounts of enemies quickly, which is weird. No proper AoE, no overwhelming single target damage, just this middle ground of awkward. A lot of beam weapons can already do something similar. I'm probably talking down this thing more than it is, but losing access to other elements on a beam weapon and only being able to build 2 as DPS is a problem for the gun condition overload meta. When the gun lacks proper crit stats, being a beam weapon alone, it is still probably good enough for Steel Pass, but there isn't really anything outstanding about this one because the vanilla variant can run Karna's Stinger for better slash weight as well. The remaining Parvos Tenet weapons are entirely new and don't have vanilla variants. These ones also don't have any stat leaks, so it's a bit harder to determine how they will perform, but I will try my best. Tenet Envoy is hard to say. This is a rocket launcher, and it seems to do some respectable damage. With the new weapon arcanes coming and condition overloads and galvanized multi-shot, I'm quite sure this is going to be a good weapon. Whether it's good enough to make it into the meta is a question I can't answer. Tenet Diplos, the akimbo pistols seem like they have some slash weight in them based on the leak footage, but it's a bit more spray and spongy than I expected. I don't know how the auto-homing alt-fire mode works, but it may travel to where you aim the laser sight beam, which means you might be able to force headshots. This could have potential, but it is very hard to say without more information on its mechanics and the stat profile of the weapon. At face value, it is rather underwhelming. Now for the final 2 bonus weapons, Tenet Ferrox and the unnamed auto sniper. I believe these are the 2 weapons being added to Void Storms for us to farm. There are arsenal stats of an unnamed Tenet rifle from the dev stream, and I believe it corresponds to said auto sniper. It even has a full auto mode as the alt fire alongside a charged shot. This may not be the stats of it, but I predict it will be. If it is actually a sniper, rest assured that fact alone is enough to make it good for Eidolon hunting if you're going to ask for that. The combo system for snipers is so busted, it doesn't matter what stats a sniper has. They're all good enough to hunt with. Also, that auto mode will probably ramp up the combos stupid fast. Sounds like a fun one though. It also seems they flipped the charged and auto stats in this picture. As you can see, the trigger rows have reverse traits. Charged being in the auto mode and auto being in the charged mode. If it isn't a sniper though, well, it still probably has decent enough stats on the charge to make it viable for hunting, as the auto mode does 24 base damage and has a fire rate of 13.33. So we can assume the charge shot probably has something scaled up in the equivalent amount of time spent in that 1 second, which means it has in the realm of at least 320 damage. Epitaph has 300 and is extremely good for Eidolons. While critical chance may be a problem on this weapon, Vigilante Mons exist, Hero Covenant exists, Arcane Avenger exists. That 2.8 crit multiplier is super juicy, so don't worry about it. For normal play, those auto fire stats remind me of Fallman's auto mode. With a grouping CC skill such as Ensnare, you can probably get gross amounts of electric chaining. I say build this a viral electric and use Ensnare. Prime up the squad with viral and some electric, and maybe shoot the charge shot as needed. Essentially an electric queller, if you will, but more status focused, with a dash of solid crit damage. This thing has half the raw DPS of Trumna, so it makes me think it will be middle of the pack, unless it can somehow proc slash. Until we know the alt-fire damage stats and type distribution are, this will be an above average gun at best. Ammo economy is kind of trash, with these semi-frequent reloads. With a good alt-fire mechanic though, it will reach good, but nowhere near top tier in the meta. Lastly, Tenet Ferrox. It has 34% crit chance and a 3.0 multiplier. This is 2% more crit chance and 0.2 more crit damage. This is nice. If only it was 35%, it could reach 100 with just critical delay, but I can't complain. An unnoticeable 0.17 increase in fire rate, but double magazine size to 20 and massively increased status to 26 from 10. This is now a viable hybrid weapon, although single target. If you get a minus puncture ribbon, this thing will be monstrous for slash. Otherwise, you're going to go for a standard viral hunter munitions build for the primary fire. What will be interesting though is the alt-fire. Not many people know that once upon a time, the alt-fire Ferrox was a mighty weapon, even stronger than the meta Zenistar, but with the gas nerfs, its firepower was gutted from a killing machine to a mid-level killer and a status spreader. But this may change, once again with the Tenet Ferrox. It sports 240 damage on the throw collision up from 100 and increased radius of collision from 3.6 to 4.0. While this may seem insignificant, this suggests the pulsing AoE damage could also have been buffed. It previously did 150 electric damage and had a fixed 50% status chance. It was also basically unable to crit. Maybe it has real stats now. And if you can get a Kuva element bonus on it, can you imagine? But being tied to the Void Storm, I can't guarantee you we will be able to slap an element on it. Regardless though, if you give the alt-fire enough stat buffs, maybe we can return it to its former glory, as the current setup is highly reliant on viral priming and roar if you actually want to kill with it. That said, this is a Ravenless setup, and it still does kill these level 150 corrupted heavy gunners pretty quickly, but still pairs in comparison to better AoE weapons like Kuva Ogris, or Tankor and Brahma for the matter. This is a throw and forget, so maybe with the right stat bumps, we'll be able to have a portable self-shooting Brahma spot. I have high hopes for this one. If the overall firepower of the alt-fire is increased by about 3 times, and we have the relevant new weapon arcanes and the galvanized mods in play, I think this one will sit as very good, but just under the meta. Otherwise, just above average. And that's it for the Tenet weapon breakdown from the Parvos Sisters mainline coming, as well as the 2 speculated Voidstorm weapons. The roster overall seems pretty good, but I can only think of 1 or 2 weapons that will truly break into the meta. A couple others managed to be competitive and get into the good range, but not nearly good enough. They will still be solid picks though. The rest fall into the average to above average category. We really only have 1 weapon that seems like it will be underperform and be trash. The rest is pretty good. We'll be able to see the full extent of their strength once the update drops and we finally get access to all of those new galvanized mods and arcane slots. I tried to gather all this information myself to reach an educated evaluation of each weapon. Please remember, I do not represent DE, nor know the final stats of each and every weapon shown. These are only my speculations based on what I know, so take this information with a grain of salt. I hope my thoughts helped you paint a better picture on the new weapons and which ones you might want to go for first. If you watched it all the way through until here, thank you. This video will be followed up with part 2 tomorrow, covering the 4 remaining Tenet Melees from Ergo Glast and the 3 new Kuva weapons being added to the Granum Liches. Stay tuned for that. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the Tempest story and the Sisters of Parvos updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first once the Sisters of Parvos mainline drops. Don't want to miss out on that day 1 Ureli content, do you? That'll be it for this video, thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.